Great. President Peevey, you were in the utility industry earlier in your career. Do you agree with Mark's point that the California utilities are really ready to support EV infrastructure? And how does this tie into some of the other key priorities that California utilities need to work in, like the development of a smart grid, so that we're not just plugging in these vehicles, but we have two-way smart communication so that we can really track power that's going on to the vehicle and so on?
Well, we're deeply involved in the smart grid right now. I mean, today in California, we're in the midst of replacing the meters in all the investor-owned utilities right now, both electric and gas. 18 million new meters are being placed in. It's become a little controversial in Kern County, but overall, it's going very well. And that's a part of it. And you have to have a smart grid. You have to have smart meters, are a major step in the smart grid. But I wanted to get to something that Senator Yee said and expand a little bit on it. California is 12% of the nation's population, but half of the venture capital in America is spent here, approximately. And it's and I love I'm here. I love to be able to be a part of an unveiling of a Chevy Volt, but it's one of a whole host of electric cars. We're building electric cars right here in California. We have the Tesla, which is a sports car, and now the manufacturing facility is going to be here in California. Green Jobs right here in this state, assembling the four-door model of that. We have Fisker, which is another one. This state has led the nation in innovation and change, and it has for many years, both good and bad. Sometimes people aren't so crazy about some of the things we come up with, but it has, and its future, as Senator Yee points out, is in technology, green jobs, and all this. And so we have to continue that kind of investment. Now, California utilities are clearly the leaders in the country on this, but that is not giving them an A. I want to be very blunt about it. They probably get a B- or a C. They could do a lot more, and it's my job to prod them to do a lot more.
What do they need to do?
I said they could be more adaptable in helping us get this industry off and running in a big way. I'll give you a personal example, and people, go, oh my God. We had an electric car, all electric, BMW, all electric, Cooper, 500 of them in the United States, 250 in New York, 250 in Southern California. We have one, my wife and I, here in Southern California. We live here in Southern California most of the time. The car, it took 6 visits from the utility company, the charging company, to put in the charging station, and the city government to certify that what the utility did was okay and safe. That's baloney. We can't do those kind of things and have a mass market for EVs. There has to be 1 visit, or at most 2 visits. Most people don't have the luxury of staying around the house from 8 to 12 waiting for the utility to show up or the charging company to show up and all that. We have to strip through all that. I want to simplify that. I want to see the utility be able to do that. They could be more helpful in that. On the other hand, Southern California Edison, the company at one time I was the president of, does have, for example, has moved boldly in one regard. The charging, if I charge my electric vehicle from 9 p.m. on, costs me 6 cents a kilowatt hour. If I charge it before 9 p.m., it's 17 cents a kilowatt hour. So they already have a rate structure that makes me want to charge it off peak. What's the point of all that? Because we want to use and integrate all the wind power we have in California to charge cars, so we don't have to build a lot of new power stations. It doesn't do any good to have electric vehicles if we're going to build a bunch of coal plants to provide the electricity. We want to do it with renewables, with solar, with wind, with biomass, with geothermal. We can do that, but we have to have rate structures that are compatible with that, and they and PG&E have come forward in doing that. But our job at the Public Utilities Commission is kind of like a grand board of directors to help them make the right choices in public policy, and the way that's why we have this order right now that we'll wrap up by the summer of next year that'll delineate some of this across the board. How do you strengthen distribution system? Who bears the cost? What kind of rate structure do you have? What kind of charging outfits do you have? How's the standardization work? The auto industry is interested in this too, but we don't want to get into the Sony beta and all that kind of stuff in the past. We want to step beyond that. And we think that if California provides the leadership in this, that other states will follow. In the Northeast and throughout the United States. And so that's our challenge. And it's my job to work with the legislature and others, the utilities, to make all this work. And we think we could do it.
So we know Michael Peavy's an early adopter of electrical vehicles, Brent.
I was also a supporter of the EV1.
Okay,
you see,
good.
When I was the president of Edison, I co-headed something called CalSTART, which is still around, that promotes alternative vehicles. So I was very frustrated when EV1, because we bought EV1s at Edison, and we had them. They were a great vehicle. They accelerated faster than the Nissan, 300, 0 to 60. It was great fun for me when I was younger. I tore down the street. But that's gone. That was 17 years ago or 15 years ago. But however, this new car, the one we have now, goes like hell too. But it's really fun to drive. They're really fun to drive, and it gets 90 miles between absolute charges. So the technology is coming fast here now. It's really, and that's what's really exciting. I agree it's not for every market, but for every consumer, but there's going to be great penetration here. And Nissan, what Goshen has said is very similar to what you said. I mean, about adoption of all this.
Well, let's get into that, Brent. Yep. Who do you think will be driving this vehicle, the Chevrolet Volt and other EVs? Will it be people using it as a primary vehicle, a second vehicle? Will we be able to get out into the mass market beyond some of the kind of early technology adopters? What do you think?
Yeah, I think, obviously the first, and some of the experiences we're talking about, it's really important to get the category of electric vehicles properly structured, because there's a lot of challenges, and I think all of us working together to make that happen. Clearly there is new technology adopters that come to bear. I'm one of those myself, early adopters that are excited about new technology. So you're going to see that. I think there's going to be a number of people. We already have, for the Volt, lots of hand raisers that are interested in the vehicle. But I think the real challenge to get it to be the electric vehicle category for all of the manufacturers, to really get to be commercially viable in bigger numbers, requires the rest of the infrastructure. Now, what we're trying to do is to allow our electric vehicle to go a little bit further, understanding the lifestyle challenges that the technology not being available or the infrastructure not being available in our first generation. That's why we've moved to this level of technology on this next generation, because we recognize we have to start with the technology. You have to allow the infrastructure to grow. It's the chicken and egg. You need to do both simultaneously. So we're going to see that, and I think you're going to see a lot of people. There are some that are going to come from a technology basis. There are some that are going to come from an environmental basis. And there's some like myself that like the fusion of both technology and environmental aspects to come together. My daily commute, I don't commute more than 40 miles. So the electric vehicle is perfect for me. I will be gas-free for as much as it can be. I always concentrate on my carbon footprint and everything I do as an individual consumer. So it's going to meet my needs. But there's going to be an occasion where I'm going to need to go beyond that 40 miles, and the generator is going to kick in for the 300-mile range. So I'm not going to need a second vehicle. It's going to meet my needs of my family. For some people, it will be completely a second vehicle. And that's going to meet the needs of those consumers. I think what's important is we have to look at this from a consumer standpoint. And so all of the propulsion technologies to solve the energy challenge globally have some great consumer benefits, and some have some infrastructure drawbacks. We have to find the right balance. It's balancing the energy, environment, economics, the 3 E's. When the 3 E's are in balance, it's a win-win-win for consumers, policymakers, manufacturers, and we're getting close to that as an industry around the world. We don't have it in perfect harmony in all the propulsions. Biofuels was a good example. I spent 6 years in South America. A great alternative. It took us a while to get the infrastructure in place. It just takes one after another to get it done. And for this propulsion technology, electric, it's going to require that as well. And for those that it meets their needs, they're going to be very pleased with the fun-to-driving capabilities you're talking about. I mean, instantaneous torque. I mean, you just feel it. I mean, it's fun to drive. You're going to learn to meter that. You're going to learn to meter your driving based on what your needs are. But if you want to have fun to drive, an electric vehicle is going to provide that for you. No sacrifice.